Good morning, friends. It is Tuesday. It's the 83rd day of Russia's invasion into Ukraine, and God is on the move. God has not abandoned. There is no place on this earth where God is not present. God is not active. God is not doing a miraculous work of his power if we have eyes to see. But more than that, there's not a single circumstance or situation where God is not looking for people to partner with him. Just like he went to Abraham and said, "Come, partner with me for the sake of Sodom and Gomorrah. Their own sin is destroying them. Come, if there be a righteous man," and he couldn't find one, "let us be those righteous men and women who stand in the gap for people, the people of Ukraine and the people of Russia, to see a mighty breakthrough of God's glory and goodness and love in the earth today." But if we're going to do that, we've got to see his hand at work. We've got to see what he's up to. So guys, let's dive in. God's on the move, man. In Kharkov, we talked yesterday, the troops, particularly the 127th Territorial Defense Brigade, had made it all the way to the Kharkov, to the Terranova, the border with Russia. And they'd made a great video. Well, Russia didn't like that, and they attacked back, but they got repulsed. They were sent back packing. They attempted again for the first time in about a month and a half. They attempted to attack into Sumy. If you guys remember, that's in the north. So it goes Kyiv, Chernihiv, Sumy, Kharkov. And so the Sumy region, well, guess what? They got driven back again. I'm trying to find some sunlight. There we go. And they got driven back. Praise God. All right. And in the area south of Izium, again, they attacked, but they were driven back. In the eastern Donbass, they attacked several positions and again were repelled. In the southeastern portion around Avdiivka, I never can say that, and other towns, they again attacked and they were repulsed. Over and over again, they shelled positions, and they are shelling positions all across the front, from Zaporozhye all the way over and around through Donbass and up to Izium, and yet the Ukrainian forces still stand, and they continue to hold the ground. I've mentioned this before. We're in a holding pattern until all of the resources that NATO is providing, but also all of the soldiers, the Ukrainian soldiers who are being trained, can be prepared so that when they go on the offensive for real, they are going to rout and destroy the Russian army in the field with no possibility of reaction. So continue to pray for that to speed up. Initially, they were saying that's going to happen middle of June. It can't happen soon enough because the people are suffering. And so continue to pray for that. In Mariupol, guys, you guys remember, what have we been praying for? Supernatural deliverance. Well, God gave supernatural strategies for getting the soldiers out. Yesterday, many of you already know, 53 deeply wounded, severely wounded soldiers and 211 other soldiers were evacuated out of Mariupol. And they've created this pattern. What they're going to do is Russia will exchange these guys for Russian prisoners of war. So that's an amazing strategy. Continue to pray for the rest of the people that are still in there. We don't know how many. Estimates vary that there were up to 600, up to 2,000. We don't know, but pray that every single person would be saved. Continue, guys, this is miraculous. We've got to celebrate that. That's amazing. But continue to pray, because already there have been, the Speaker of the Duma in Russia has spoken out saying that we can't do this. This must not happen. Volodin said we cannot do this. But guys, pray that this comes to pass. Again, we've been praying for the snake to turn on itself, but pray that the Russian people will demand that their Russian soldiers be returned at all cost, and that again, this turns against the military folks who don't want to negotiate at all. Great thing is Germany has declared that Russia will not get away with trying to redraw Ukraine's borders by creating facts on the ground and waiting out Kyiv and its allies. And instead, Olaf Scholz said, thanks for the friend who kept saying I was saying Otto instead of it's Olaf, insisting that the West would not stand for a diktat or a dictated peace forced on them. Why is this important? Because apparently Macron, after talking to Putin, our French president, was pressuring Zelensky to submit to this dictated peace where they give up all the territory Russia's taken just for the sake of a ceasefire. Praise God. Now flip-flop. Do you guys remember there was a time when it was UK standing with Ukraine, and then France a little bit behind them, and then Germany not even in the ball game. Well, now France is the one fighting for Russia's sake, and yet it's Germany that stands with it. Guys, we prayed for that, and it's happening. Praise God. Praise God. I continue to pray for the same thing to happen for France. France has many times waffled, so let's keep praying for that. Another interesting thing is the Russian military. So one of the things that's continued to play out is that the Russian military is in a Soviet mindset where they are that ground troops are utterly unable to make decisions. Well, now not even generals can make decisions. Putin and Gerasimov, apparently Gerasimov, although we haven't seen him since he got wounded, the two of them are sitting down and they are playing chess and checkers with all the troops. They are moving troops at the level of a brigadier or a colonel. This is nuts. This is the level to which they do not trust their generals. They do not trust anybody. Literally, this is insanity. But not only that, what that means is nobody on the ground at all can make any decisions unless Putin says so. Well, Putin doesn't have enough information. Even if he had all the information, he doesn't have the brain power to process it, and he doesn't have it in real time. So the delays mean that these troops are stranded, they're frozen, they're completely incapable, but also when he undermines the command and control structure, the generals begin to turn on him. So guys, continue to pray that these situations are truly horrific for the Russian military, but they are wonderful for the preservation of life on the ground, because soldiers that can't fight won't go where if they're not told. They're not fighting. People continue to live. One of the things that are horrible, but we've been praying for the truth to come out, right? Is over and over again we're hearing these stories where Russian officers, whether in frustration, whether in whatever it is, at defeat or whatever, but when they are shooting their own Russian soldiers who are wounded, rather than try to carry them out, rather than care for them, rather they're shooting them dead. Guys, these kind of things, fundamentally, pray they get into Russia, that Russia sees what's happening, because another great thing is that it is coming out in some degree. One of the ways that we've talked about that Russia might secretly conscript people is by grabbing people of age in Siberia, particularly places far from Moscow where people feel powerless. Traditionally in Russia, the places outside of Moscow have a totally different standard of living, are relatively powerless, and especially into Siberia, absolutely. And we saw two big firebombing, massive firebombings of not just recruitment offices, but the recruitment, like the regional headquarters for recruitment in Omsk and in what is it, Nizhny Voronezh? What is that city? I can't remember now. But anyway, they are just seeing these firebombs. Where is it? Nizhny Vartovsk, which is where most of the oil comes from. They firebombed them, and one of the activists who had firebombed a place in Moscow, their goal is to destroy the recruitment records so they can't find the kids and send them there. Guys, these kids they're sending, these are the most vulnerable. Many times they're orphans, or they are parents of alcoholics, people who have nobody to stand for them, to protect them. And so pray for these kids not to be sent, not to be twisted, not to be lied to. Pray for these recruitment efforts to not succeed. So praise God, the Russian people are rising up. Continue to pray for that. One of the things too is the Russian people are starting to catch on that their economy is bad. And here's how. The Russian ruble actually is worth it is actually worth 25% more than it was when the war began because of artificial controls by the Russian government, but that's for non-cash. So in other words, that's for banks and investment vehicles, not for people. Well, what have we been saying? It's the people who are end up going to pay for this. And the people are starting to pursue dollars by any means possible. In fact, even in the banks, they're going to pay upwards of 20 to 25% more for dollars if they exchange rubles for dollars, but there are no dollars available, so they can't even find them. So they're turning to the black market where they're paying vastly more. And so these kind of things start to reveal to Russians exactly what's going on. Continue to pray that Russians understand you, because it's hard to imagine. I mean, simple things like toilet bowls have gone up 70% in the last 3 months. These things, they got to reach the Russian people where they recognize fundamentally how close they are, because they are facing default on the 27th of the beginning of the next phase of this, the 27th of May. Pray for that. Pray for breakthrough there. Pray. Pray for the breakthrough of understanding what's going on. Another thing that's happened is Russia is saying Ukraine is whacking away. They will not negotiate. What's really happened is Ukraine said, we will only negotiate from here on out with Zelensky as our negotiator. And Russia will not talk to Zelensky. They don't want to legitimize him, as if he being elected president and serving for 3 years of Ukraine is not legitimacy enough. But that is what's really going on. I pray that that kind of narrative gets revealed so that Russia again does not get a pass. So pray for that. Also with NATO, Sweden has finally said they've signed their official documents following Finland requesting to be part of NATO. This is huge. Sweden has not been involved in an armed conflict in over 200 years. They've maintained neutrality since the Napoleonic Wars. That's insane. Switzerland is even considering applying for NATO membership. They are neutrality itself. But Turkey is saying fundamentally they refuse to even consider it. It has to be unanimous. They're part of NATO. And they've said they refuse to let Sweden and Finland join, mainly because Sweden and Finland have put arms sanctions on them for their attacks into Syria and their attacks on the Kurdish people. And so, and Turkey is also mad that many Kurdish refugees have ended up in Finland and Sweden, and they see it as harboring terrorists. So pray for that situation, because I've got to tell you guys, Erdogan is the president of Turkey, is not exactly what you'd say the sweetest character. And what we've been praying is that every nation that stands against breakthrough and for the deliverance of the people of Ukraine, that they would fall. And each of these governments are governments of oppression. They are governments of oppression. Russia, India, China, Turkey, UAE, Saudi Arabia, and Iran. These are all governments with massive human rights violations, massive amounts of oppression and lack of liberty, but also lack of freedom for the gospel. So pray that every single government that stands against Ukraine in this time and what God's doing in Ukraine would fall as a result. Come on. All right. So, one of the things too that is really exciting is that as far as support, is that the Secretary of the Treasury in the U.S. Is Janet Yellen, and she has issued a call for a large-scale economic assistance for rebuilding Ukraine. Think like a Marshall Plan that was so key to Europe's recovery. We've been praying, you guys remember, for over a month now, we've been praying for that the world would get behind not just ending hostilities, but rebuilding Ukraine. This is huge. They've already suffered, almost, I think, I don't want to overestimate. I want to say it's something like $1 trillion in damage or something. But they've experienced so much destruction of infrastructure. But on top of that, 9 out of 10 Ukrainians will be plunged into poverty as a result of this. And I mean, this was days ago, so it's probably worse than this. 40% of the GDP has evaporated. So Ukraine desperately needs help to restore and rebuild. And praise God, we've been praying that they would be proactively moving towards protecting and caring and building up, because in these kind of poverty zones, then the mafia tends to take advantage. So pray that continues, that movement continues to happen. Also, the U.S. has just conducted their second successful test of their hypersonic missile. Why is this important? Because Russia's been using hypersonic missiles multiple times into Ukraine. And hypersonic missiles are so fast, they cannot be detected and stopped in time. They're basically the ultimate weapon right now, and they were used for the first time ever in conflict by Russia. And this has destroyed parity, but also it's rendered, Ukraine vulnerable and the West vulnerable. And so U.S. has been showing, like with the use of the release of drone ships and like the Ghost Phoenix drones, that they are willing to send in their most cutting edge weaponry. And there's a reason for that. On a selfish level, they get to get real world application and testing and prove its effectiveness. So that's a win for them. So if they could release these hypersonic missiles into Ukraine, this would actually change the negotiating balance, because right now Russia has all the threats. So this would change it, because this could create a means by which Ukraine could effectively threaten military installations deep within Russia. They could effectively threaten Putin himself. And that's big, because Putin's been threatening Zelensky from day one. And so that would balance things out in a way that could possibly bring Russia to the negotiating table. All right, so obviously, wow, so much good is going on. We're seeing, again, the church continuing to unite across denominational barriers, unite for the sake of the weak and the powerless, being courageous, bold, going into the very war zones, going into occupied territories. Guys, one of the things to pray for is Kherson is, they are facing catastrophic medical issues, with most medical supplies running out in the next 2 weeks. And so guys, our friends Vladimir and Lilia and their team at Blaga Ves, the Good News Church, along with their partners, have been going into occupied territories like Melitopol and Kherson region in order to get those supplies, like insulin, things that people will die with they don't have. Continue to pray for the church to rise up in that kind of courage and to be the source of breakthrough for the weak, the powerless, and those in need. Pray that they would have wisdom of where to go and what to do at the exact right times, that they would have the resources needed. And I'm so grateful. So many of you have given. I'm eyeballing. I think we've got another 5,000 to go in, but guys, we need more. They need more. They need more. They listen, gas is going up, supplies are going up. They're giving away everything they get. And so guys, we want to continue to get behind them. If you would consider being a part of that, you can go to ariselife.org/help Ukraine. There's a green button there. There's also the information. You go to the Facebook page, you can see all the stuff they're doing. Please consider giving, because it's making a difference at this crucial time. Because as the focus, as it's less obvious what's going on, the reality is setting in. Another thing to pray for is refugees. One of the things that's happened is a report came in the UK, and the UK is not taking in very many refugees, but many of them, they're getting reports of Ukrainian families who were taken in during this Homes for Ukraine initiative, while the Ukrainians are being kicked out of those homes with 24 hours to stay. And now I mean, it's hard to invite a house guest. I think a lot of people did it from emotional reasons. But guys, if this is happening here, it can also be happening in Poland. again, the Ukrainians are not there to emigrate. They're there so they can go home. Pray that Ukrainian people would begin to move and go back, that they would recognize. Kharkov, I mentioned, is seeing 2,000 people coming back a day. Pray that to increase, that the Ukrainian people would recognize it's time to rebuild, that they would be brave and come back, and that they would resist the urge to emigrate because Ukraine needs them. And pray for them to be bold and courageous, but also for the hospitality of the nations who've received them, like Poland, Romania, Slovakia, and Moldova, to continue to be gracious, but also for the Ukrainian people to have the means to go back. Many Ukrainians are going back simply because they've run out of money, they've run out of resource. So guys, pray for their protection on the road back, right? That they would not be taken advantage of, that they would get home, that children would stay united with families, and so on. Also, continue to pray for Severodonetsk. There have been movements by the Russians. The Ukrainians have retreated back across the river, but they're holding the river. Pray that they continue to hold fast against the Russian advance there. And so, in Lvov, there were massive missile strikes yesterday, or this morning even, middle of the night, coming from Belarusian airspace, from aircraft there, Russian aircraft, missile strikes on military facilities there, about 20 plus miles outside of the city center. Pray that those resources are protected, that they would not be able to destroy those vital military supplies that are needed. Continue to pray also that Ukraine would hold on to Snake Island. And pray for Chernihiv and Kyiv, because they actually did a missile strike within 25 miles of downtown Kyiv in the Chernihiv region. They're attempting to terrorize the people. Pray for the people to rise up and to be powerful and courageous in the midst of all of this. Wow. Guys, let us be encouraged. Let us be encouraged. Let us continue to pray. Let us continue to see God do amazing miracles in this hour and in this day, because God is on the move. Your prayers matter. So let's continue to pray. Let's continue to raise up prayer, to share these, get the word out, and just so grateful for all of you all. And I just want to pray right now, particularly if you're struggling with fatigue, not just about Ukraine, but fatigue in general is definitely in the air right now. I just want to bless you with God's power, his life. The very spirit that raised Jesus Christ from the dead dwells in you. If you've said yes to him, he is living inside of you, and he wants to empower you. That's what grace is. It's the power of God to do the will of God. God's got stuff for you to do today. Even if you are housebound, even if you are bedbound, God has purposes for you. Your life is not without purpose. And yes, it's for prayer, but probably for more than that. And so I bless you to experience his power and grace on the inside, giving you the life and joy and hope you need to say yes to Jesus, to hear his voice, to partner with him for his plans, and to live the life he has for you. We love you guys. We just love that we get to do this every day. Your encouragement for us means the world. But listen, you're not meant to do it alone. We've got amazing men's and women's mentorship groups. Gary Phillips, I see here, he leads the men's groups. If you'd like to be a part of that, put men's group and he'll get you the details. They're on Zoom. Or the women's group, say women's group, and Mariana Sikovska or Jill Hawes, who lead those, will get in touch with you with the details as well. Woo! Yes, come on. Yes, Ben. We are continuing to pray. There's so many points that we never get to touch. So many things we're asking you to consider praying for. As always, you can find that at ariselife.org/Ukraine. And the daily, we post those every day. But also, please don't allow yourself to be overwhelmed by that entire list. We talked about 30, 40, 50 things today, and there's several hundred on these pages. You ask God to show you the things that God has for you. Let God show you the 1, 2, 3 things he would have you pray, and then ask him for a supernatural strategy. I'll give you an example. One of the things that's been on our hearts, and we mentioned a few times, is that Russia has left behind hundreds of thousands of mines. And the way they put it is, for every day of occupation or fighting, it takes 30 days to clear the mines from the area. And now, as the war warm weather comes in, grass grows up, mud gets covered over, they are losing where these mines are. But the mines sink in the mud down 2, 3, 4, 5 inches, but they're still active and they're very dangerous. And people are dying from these mines. This really gripped my heart. And I'm like, Lord, what could you do? And just today, I read an article how in August 72, the U.S. had mined massive amounts of Vietnamese waters during the Vietnam War. And a solar flares, a solar eruption, partnered with the geomagnetical fields. Guess what happened? It exploded thousands of these mines right on site. So wouldn't it be amazing if something like that, supernaturally, these mines, not harming anybody, just would detonate on their own and be destroyed? Wouldn't that be amazing if all of them were just taken out? So guys, God has supernatural solutions that we can't even imagine to protect life, the life of the Ukrainians, the life of Russians, and for righteousness to thrive. Again, continue to pray that within the Kremlin, that God would be glorified, that a Daniel would arise in the place, and that God's man would be in time. Pray for encounters for everyone involved, from Zelensky to Dvornikov to Putin to Gerasimov to Navalny, that each of these would cry on the Lord and experience his presence and his joy and his salvation. We love you guys. Thank you for being a part of this. Again, if you'd like to help with what Vladimir and Lilia are doing with the church, Благая Весть in Dnipro, go to ariselife.org/help-Ukraine. And our plan is to send money over tomorrow. So if you're able to get the money through in the next 24 hours, we will be sending it straight over. So we love you guys. Have an amazing, amazing day. Take care.